of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Manuel Cicero. Chapter 116. Domestic Bliss. Returning to his eatery, Shouta opened the door, entered his home, closed and locked it behind him, and made his way into the kitchen. The sense of freshly kneaded proved dough and simmering stock somehow never tainted or detracted from the cakes, muffins, and cookies that were just about done. He hoped that Fuyumi, Natsuo, and Shoto liked them. He'd tasked his tots and teens with the mission of gauging each sibling's flavor profiles because, sure, he'd be making all of them their preferred cold soba for lunch, but he wanted to make something special for each kid. Again, as he washed himself up in the industrial sink under the herb-crowded service hatch, his hands having already gone through the motions of shoving his hair into a bun, he found himself reflecting on how lucky he'd been to have such wonderful parents who'd known him, treated him well, and loved him unconditionally, even if it had only been for 8 years. And now here he was with a burgeoning community, a family, and someone who wanted to marry him. He was sure that they'd be happy for him. He was sure that if there was such a thing as an afterlife, then they'd be watching over everything, cheering him on. That's the kind of people they'd been. The kind of people he aspired to be. And that's why, as small a gesture as it was, he really wanted to make something special for Fuyumi, for Natsuo, and Shoto. Based on the text messages he'd received from his kids, he was pretty sure that the young woman would probably enjoy a lemon meringue tart. However, Natsuo would hopefully like a mint and chocolate-based cheesecake laced with dark chocolate and dusted with cacao powder. The youngest Todoroki, though, seemed to have inherited his oldest brother and mother's now infamous sweet tooth, and so, his mind flicking through recipes, he decided that he'd make Dabi's favorite molten marshmallow chocolate cake for the boy. He'd make it big enough for Rei and her oldest to have a few slices, too. When Mitsuki saw it, it'd probably be demolished within 10 minutes, wouldn't it? Chuckling to himself, he set about sectioning off the ingredients he'd need for the special orders before putting together breakfast for his friends and lover. Toshinori could put a lot away, and so he made the wise decision to set the eggs he'd need for later to one side before scuttling toward the smart till to make another order. Further edible necessities could be delivered tomorrow during his late morning lull. That way he could use a plethora of food items today without any of his customers suffering for lack of his regular menu items on Monday. It'd be the first day back to school for the younger members of his community, and he wanted to send them all off for a day of learning with full stomachs in the first instance, and something to look forward to at lunchtime. Was there anything better than being able to feed the people you loved? Jogging upstairs, his grin quirking when he saw that the local pros were still down for the count, he shrugged lightly and walked into his bedroom. Oh, what smells so good? Where a very much awake number 1 pro was waiting for him with waggling eyebrows. Welcome back, kitten. Chuckling quietly at the other's come-hither wink, Shouta moved to stand over him. Thanks. And what you can smell is your breakfast, he told him with a smile. So, no, I don't think it is. The blonde purred out whilst rolling into a sit, a playful glint lighting those mischievously sparkling eyes. No, but I do sense something delicious, he stated as he exaggeratedly sniffed at the air. Blinking, his eyes darting across his room, he'd not changed his laundry detergent, or I'm not sure what it could be. What does she? He laughed gasped as the other pounced, those impossible arms wrapping him up and pulling him down, the hero's stronger form easily pinning his slenderer frame to the futon to allow those experienced, hungry lips to kiss all of him. Does she? Come on. I haven't showered yet, he stage whispered, his brain trying to remind him that they weren't alone in his apartment. You're just perfect as you are, kitten. The sun-kissed milkroot. You always smell and taste wonderful after a run. He sighed dreamily, his fingers now moving to ruthlessly tickle him in all of his weak spots, causing him to giggle. Stop, he almost squealed. We will wake everyone else up. He sputtered. Come on, knock it off. He managed to get out before the other pulled him into a true kiss, which he happily returned, his eyes rolling fondly. His future husband was such a lovable dork, wasn't he? That was a truly enjoyable appetizer, my love, the blonde murmured gently as he pulled away, a truly sappy look plastered across his handsome features. Shall we shower next? Blushing, he nodded and allowed himself to be bridal carried up and out of his room. Woo! Way to go, big guy! Obero cheered from the sofa, his hands applauding. Aww, you two are so cute! As she gushed from where he and his own lover were grinning like fools upon their borrowed futon. Shomni, come on, you're not married yet, Seiji mockingly chastised, his right index finger waggling at him. Emma, it's immature. You're recording this, right? The irritated bro squealed with those little hearts floating all around her. Nah, you betcha never check. The other's girlfriend snickered diligently while she snapped the jaunty salute at him. Ugh. At least Jin and Chizome were still wonderfully oblivious to this display. The pair of them down for the count whilst Toshinori snuggled him all the closer, the big ham more than happy to stretch around in nothing but his underwear. Gah! Covering his face with a mortified groan, Shouta curled into his lover's chest whilst the number one pro preened and ferried them into the bathroom with a bow at their hooting audience. Why did he love all of these idiots again? After he and his partner were thoroughly cleaned up and dressed, he ushered the others downstairs to ensure that they all ate a good meal before heading to their homes to change. All of them would be coming back at 1100 to meet and greet the Todorokis, with the exception of Jin and Shizome. Both had laughed and told him that they weren't going anywhere because they needed to stop their workaholic boss from doing everything himself. Such good people. Therefore, between them and his fiancée, he tasked the three to blow up balloons, hang bunting, and set up the selection of board games that they already had. He had originally wanted to create his version of the water park for the kids, too. However, flooding the freshly rescued kids with external stimuli wouldn't necessarily be a good thing. He knew from his own experiences that rushing ahead or being thrown in at the metaphorical deep end never ended well for anyone. And so to stop himself from overthinking things, he re-entered his kitchen and set about baking and cooking, because there was something so comforting in the logical application of ingredients, heat, and rational methods, which yielded predicted desirable results. Some days when he felt a little overstimulated himself, he'd sneak down to the kitchen and make things, his wards all fast asleep in bed, his lover fast asleep in bed, and his hands busily working through processes he'd been working with, reworking, until something new and delicious was made. Until the whispering threat of anxiety had passed, because it did. The mind was a beautiful thing that you could master, that you could treat and heal just like any other part of the body given time, patience, support, and understanding. Hopefully, given the opportunity, he and his friends would be able to find ways to help the younger Todoroki siblings navigate the tumultuous and uncertain scape of their new lives from now on. Because for him, it was cooking. Toshinori enjoyed watching American movies. Hizashi had his radio gig. Obero loved drumming. Nemori enjoyed cleaning. Tomoko hiked through national parks, and so on and so on. What would Fuyumi like to do? Could any of their chosen hobbies apply to her, to the boys? Or would they follow Dabi into the arts? Natsuo certainly had a musical ear, but did he enjoy playing the cello? Had Shoto been allowed to do anything, other than the brutal training regime he... Kitten! Blinking out of his thoughts, he found himself turning away from the marshmallow cake he'd constructed to find his lover standing by the door which led to his service bar that had some face, soft and fond. That was that way. Watching his partner interact with his siblings was a magical thing. Wow! You do all of those things. That's amazing. However, as he sat behind him on Koji's minibus, he remembered a time he would have felt differently. What's a portfolio again? Oh, yes, when they'd first become friends, when they'd become romantically involved, when the threat of sensei had become more of a nightmare from his past than the reality they all enjoyed, he'd worried that maybe he'd lose Dabi to his first family, his blood family. Maybe he'd become engrossed in the thought of saving them and push him to the wayside. He'd been sidelined, in one way or another, for the majority of his life. He'd gotten used to rejection, and he wouldn't have fought the other. He wouldn't have made a fuss if he wasn't wanted. He would have understood if the tension would have made it difficult for him to stay at the Nodanako. Dabi was Sho's first ward. He couldn't have asked him to choose between them. He tried to make his peace with that eventuality, but There sure are a lot of drawings of Tomura-Nisan in here, aren't there? Their rejection had never arrived. In fact, they'd started sharing a room after their first Christmas together. His lover had opened up to him. He'd returned the gesture. Their relationship had grown more solid by the day, and now, in as little as an hour, they'd speak to their guardian quietly first, because although they were going to share their happiness with the whole community, their family, they wanted to give him their good news privately, especially since Spinner had been so good about keeping their secret, too. What can I say? He's my muse. And besides, when you've got cheekbones like that, it would be the crime not to draw them, you know? Flushing as his partner in every sense turned to look at him over his chair, the cheeky bastard even winking at him. Tomura folded his arms with a huff and tried his best to stem his blush, whilst their green-skinned friend snickered next to him. Mitsuki-san laughed, snorted into her hand, and Inko-san, fanning her eyes, gushed about young love being so cute. It sure felt good to be loved, didn't it? Considering the cafe was supposed to be closed, he couldn't have been more happy to see it brimming with life, laughter, and energy. The booths were decked with games, a party playlist filtered through the sound system, balloons, welcome banners, and bunting similarly really built up a picture-perfect scene. Oh, wow! It's as magical as you said, Aniki. I really love all the colors, Shoni-san. Oh, and all the cute cat figurines, too. Did Mimi Bachan knit those ones? They're adorable. God, Sho and the others must have been working all morning to put this together. He knew he should have come back with them to help. He should have gotten up early, called a taxi, and come back to help because their mother was more than capable of getting them ready for today. Shit, he knew that Shoto loved him, that he wouldn't see any of this as an inconvenience, but... Whoa! Look at all of those drawings on the wall! We would never be allowed to... And those red cat photos and people photos. Is that a picture of All Might-O? You guys know All Might-O. He'd be getting his true father several boxes of salty licorice for the rest of his life for this, wouldn't he? There were other pros in those photos too, and everyone's smiling. I've never seen so many smiles before. Is the food here really that good? Chuckling at his siblings, who'd huddled around him like a brood of wide-eyed ducklings, he ushered them further inside where the local pros were bursting with the need to introduce themselves, as Sho and Toshiji waited patiently behind the service bar. You could say that, he told the boys, his hands ruffling their snowy hair. But don't just take my word for it. You've got lots of other people who really want to meet and talk with you, he stated, his turquoise gaze looking to the men and women he'd come to know and love, his older brothers and sisters, another true branch of his family. Really? Shoto breathed, those mismatched eyes looking up at him in wonder. You bet. He grinned before turning back to his mom, their friends, and the Smalls, who were crowded behind them. So why don't you guys have a good look around, meet everyone else, and then go see the cats? He told them, their excitement flooding his heart before he turned to regard his non-biological parent, his smile spreading. Me and Tomura need to steal our dad for a minute, and then we'll come join you all, okay?